There are actually a lot of reasons that you'd want to quit something or that you have to quit something that you love doing. When I first came up with this idea, 5 tips on how to quit something that you love, I thought, why would anyone ever want to quit something that they love? And then the more I thought about it, the more I realized we often, maybe even regularly, have to quit things we love doing. The first thing that I had to quit doing that I loved doing was smoking. I think I was about 18 or 19 years old. I loved smoking. I was in university and I would smoke and have coffee and study, write letters to my grandma while having a cigarette, and she was a smoker too, so I knew that she was probably reading them with a cigarette in her hand. I had a really hard time quitting because I loved smoking, and that's why most people have a hard time quitting smoking or anything, is because they love doing it. But sometimes we even have to quit things that are actually healthy, such as a job we really love, exercise that we enjoy doing but can't do anymore, a role in a family or a community. My 5 tips for quitting something that you love doing are inspired by 2 things. Number 1, I want to quit blogging in the same way I was blogging before. So blogging has been my full-time job for my own She Blossoms blog for 15 years. That is a long time, and I love doing it. But I think it's time for me to really scale back from full-time to maybe 1 blog post a week. The second thing that inspired me to write a blog post and make a video about quitting something that you love is watching The Queen on Netflix. The episode that we saw last night was about Winston Churchill and how he refused to quit his job as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom because he loved doing it so much. So he's like 80 on his deathbed, more or less, and he refused to quit because he loved it. Even when you love something, sometimes you have to know when enough is enough, and you have to be able to quit it with grace and dignity. So my first tip on quitting something that you love, whether it's a relationship, a job, a role, a position, is to figure out if your identity is somehow wrapped up in that role or the thing that you loved. For instance, the reason that Churchill did not want to quit being prime minister, his identity was so wrapped up in the role or the position of being prime minister that quitting would be essentially losing himself, losing a huge, if not all, of who he was. So if you're thinking about quitting, or you know that there's something that you need to quit doing in your life, just look at that position or that role and ask yourself how much of your identity is tied up in that thing. For instance, if you're a mom and your kid is going off to university or going off to kindergarten or just developing a life of his or her own, maybe you're too involved in the idea of being a mom, so you've made your identity a mom, as a mother, instead of identity as a woman or as an artist or as something else. Ideally, we should have several different identities in our life, not just wife and mother, not just father and provider, not just lawyer, writer, banker, doctor, skier. We need to have multiple of them. So when we lose one identity, or when one identity changes, we're not left with nothing. Unless you're a banana. If you're a banana, you have to be that banana. You can't be an apple at the same time. But if you're a human, you can actually be more than one thing at one time. So if you've noticed that you've sort of become the role or the position that you really love, that's actually a good sign that it might be time to let it go. My second tip on how to quit something that you love doing is to be generous and give space to someone else so that they can participate in that role or that part of the community. Now, this doesn't apply to everything. Obviously, if you're a mom, you don't want to be generous and let someone else mother your child. Although I can actually think of a few instances where you might want to step aside and allow someone else to mother your child. If, for instance, you've been diagnosed with a fatal illness, say you've been diagnosed with cancer, and someone else is going to have to mother your child after you pass. Like, it's horrible, but that's the thing. Like, sometimes we have to step aside and allow someone else to take the role. And I'm thinking specifically of Winston Churchill. He did not want to step aside as prime minister, but if he had stepped aside on time instead of waiting to the very last minute, and it was clutched. No, he was clutching that position with both hands, and he refused to give it up. But if he had actually stepped aside and given it up with grace and dignity, he could have trained the next prime minister, had a good relationship with that person, and handed over the reins with something that was much more beautiful than clinging it and then being forced to relinquish it. Sometimes we have to step aside, even if it's something that we love, and give it to someone else as a gift. Let that person step into the role and become who they are meant to be in that role. My third tip is to question your beliefs about the idea of quitting. So sometimes people think quitting is for losers. You should never quit something that you love. If you love doing it, why would you quit? People shouldn't leave good jobs or comfortable relationships. If I quit this thing, then people will look down on me or think differently of me or talk about me. Question those beliefs. Whatever belief that you have about quitting something you love or just quitting in general, question it. Is it really true that, for instance, quitting is for losers? So if I decide to quit my job blogging because I want to pursue something else, does that mean I'm a loser? I don't think so. Another belief is that people should always stay if it's a good job or if it's a comfortable relationship. Is that true? I can't answer that for everybody. I can only look at my own life and think, if it's a good job or a comfortable relationship, does that mean I should stay in it for as long until someone dies? I don't know, but it's something that's worth sitting down and thinking about. My fourth tip is to be open to possible successes, possible failures, and guaranteed growth. So you may not succeed in the next thing that you do. If, for instance, I quit my job blogging and I want to write a novel. I've never written a fiction book before. So if I scale back my blogging, essentially to me that's quitting, and I start working full-time on this novel, and it never gets published, then will I have failed? Maybe. But will I have succeeded? I would see it as succeeded because it scares me to quit blogging. I love blogging and I also want to try something new. So if I quit and it doesn't work, have I failed or succeeded? Does it even matter? The thing is growth. So I will have grown forward in some way. I will have tried something new, and then I'll know. If you're thinking about quitting something that you love doing, or if you're forced to let go of something that you love, think about it in terms of growing forward in some way. My fifth tip is to find your reason, a reason that makes sense to you for quitting something that you love, for choosing to let go of it, even though you acknowledge how much you love it and that you love it. If you can find a way to make that reason your own, or to develop your own way of thinking about quitting something that you love, then you're much more likely to be able to move forward or grow forward into a direction that is healthy and life-giving and maybe even fun. Your turn. You tell me, why would you quit something that you love doing? And if it's something that you're forced to quit, what can you do or tell yourself or start thinking that helps you move into a different stage of life instead of holds you back? Take good care of yourself because you are worth taking good care of. Mwah! I quit. What? You want to be a telephone? Okay, let's try it. It doesn't work. You're a banana. You can't quit being a banana. If you love being a banana, don't quit being a banana. Be the banana. Be the best banana you can be.